Happy Friday. I'm Gary, and welcome to the Power of Prudence. On Fridays at the Power of Prudence, we talk about topics regarding your personal security. And I like to do those on Friday because it's the end of the week and you're going into a weekend with your families. Hopefully, some of the security topics that we cover will be fresh on your mind and you can discuss them with your family and talk about ways to implement some of the ideas within your family's security plan. Today on the Power of Prudence, we're going to talk about codes. Hey, code sounds like one of those secret spy things, right? But it's not really that. If you think about it, all communication, I think, is a code. We attach specific meaning to specific words, and that's how we communicate. So when we talk about codes, what we've really done is taken words and applied a special context or meaning to those words. And generally, we've limited the number of people that know that special meaning, right? So, hey, code words then are really just going to be normal, everyday words that with people like and members of our family, we attach special meaning. Hey, that's just background. So we're going to talk about two types of code words today that you can use in your family's security plans. One are recognition codes. Many of you have heard about that with your young kids, that if there's ever a need for you to have another parent pick them up or plans changed, and this I think is especially helpful when they're younger, like elementary school, and hopefully you have not given them a cell phone yet, right? So this recognition code is a code. If I was going to have my neighbor pick my kid up and that was unplanned, I would have a recognition code, a word, maybe a color, purple or whatever word that you want to choose, and I would give them to that parent. Now, my child has to be informed about the code word and the use of that recognition code so that they know that any parent that says, hey, your mom said for me to pick you up, that if they don't have that code word, that's not true, or they're not to be believed, or they should run away from that person and get help. That's just a recognition code. Yeah, it's true when they get older and have cell phones that the cell phone could be used to check with mom or dad. Hey, for some of you that work in certain types of jobs in the military and intel community, you cannot have a phone. So your child may want to call you and verify something, but you're unavailable. So I think those recognition codes are good things to use to have your child verify that a person that claims to be speaking or acting on your behalf is in fact doing so. So that's recognition codes. Again, we use recognition codes to help verify that a person making claims to be speaking in your behalf as a parent or acting in your behalf, that it helps your family member to verify that. The other type of code that we'll talk about is a duress code. Duress codes are normal sounding words that a family member can use that will signal you that they're under duress. And there's kind of two categories of duress codes that I'd like to talk about. One, when your kids reach that age where they're out on their own, particularly I think teens and possibly preteens, even on up into the college age, and they're out somewhere with other friends, I want to have a word that, hey, if my child is at a party or with friends, and things start going downhill, and maybe some people start getting engaged in activities that they know are prohibited by our family, are illegal, are ill-advised, and they want out of that situation. But hey, let's face it, at that age, peer pressure is difficult. So we want them to have, let's give them an outlet that they could text us or call us and use a, inconspicuous code or phrase or a couple of words that would let me know, like, let's say that my child was at a party and suddenly people started drinking, using drugs, or maybe some, college age dudes start showing up at a middle school party my kids are at. Then if my daughter were to call me and use that duress code, it could be like, hey, I forgot and left my my sink running, or something, or I forgot to wish Aunt Mary happy birthday. Well, there is no Aunt Mary, right? Then I know that my daughter is in an uncomfortable situation, and I want to try to help. I need to get to her and pick her up and help her. But B, I want to do that in a way that doesn't really cause her embarrassment. And so I'm going to make up an excuse, like I'll hang up from her, or if it's appropriate while I'm on the phone with her, I will tell them about this sudden, putting it here so you can see it, emergency that the family has, and I'm required therefore to come and pick them up. I might say, hey, your mom has been injured, and we're gonna take her to the doctor. And I'm gonna come pick you up. Some sort of emergency at home. Anything to give them an excuse to tell other people why I'm there. Hey, and if I feel the situation's appropriate, I will just show up at the door and give that, make that emergency statement when I get to the door to pick my child up. Now, you think, like, that's a lot of extra work to cover your kid for behavior, like at a party, or to make sure they can have a good time. But I think it is important because it allows a level of trust between you and that teen, young adult child at that vulnerable age where they're experimenting at being out on their own and making judgments about the people they're with, the activities that they're engaging in. And I want to reinforce my child when they make that judgment that this activity or this aspect of what I'm doing is going against what I've been taught and I know to be safe and comfortable. So then I want them to exercise that judgment and call me. So that's why I believe that this safety valve, this type of duress code, is very important to use with that age child. The other kind of duress code is for things a little more serious. Let's say that your child is spending the night at somewhere, or goes on a vacation trip with other people, goes off on a camp or school trip, and they're away from home for some time. The duress code, and this, well, I guess there's even another level of duress code that we can talk about after. But this duress code, similar to, what I talked about at a party, allows them to call me. Like, I used this with a family that had a daughter going to a foreign country and staying with a family in a remote place. And she would be totally subject to whatever they dictated or wanted, and out of reach of her parents. So we set up where she would do a daily check-in, just by text or phone with her parents, just say, hey, I'm fine. And the people she was staying with knew that. But then we built in the duress code that if things started getting uncomfortable for her there, or maybe there were expectations made of her that she didn't want to go along with, that she could use the duress code. And then the family was going to come up with an emergency, and requiring the daughter to have to get on a plane and fly home immediately. So the duress code, our situation is a little more dire in this case. Your child can be out of your reach for longer periods. You may not be able to jump in the car and run, a few blocks away to a party to rescue them. But the duress code works. And finally, with the duress code, can indicate life-threatening emergencies. I teach, when I work with groups here, I usually talk about a home invasion that happened in the DC area in 2015 that was nicknamed the DC Mansion Murders. And in this, there was a home invasion. A wife, a child, and a housekeeper were home. The husband was not. The perpetrators took the family hostage, and then had forced the wife to call the husband at work and give some pretext that required him to come home. So in that case, had there been a duress code, she could have complied, whether a gun was being held to her, her child was being threatened, whatever. She could have complied with the demands of the bad person and called her husband and given him the reason that he needed to come home, but also included in that this inconspicuous code that would have alerted him that this is being done under duress. He could have then agreed to go along with the demands and said, I'm coming home, but then immediately called the police and notified them. That's dire circumstances, but it's a good thing to have. Some families, I've worked with families that have all kinds of safes for their valuables. There are some safes that are tied to security systems that have the electronic code. It's usually a 6-digit code that you can put in, you put in to open that safe. There are safes that have that it is, instead of the correct 6-digit code, there is one digit you can press. It's called a duress code, and you can press it, and that one digit is one different than the regular code. Now, when you press this duress code, it will open the safe for you or the bad person, but it also silently notifies the police. So when you use that, this is for the case where somebody might be holding a gun on you and saying, or a family member, open that safe or I'll do X. Well, now you can open that safe, but it silently sounds or gives that duress code or alarm so that someone knows that something bad is happening. So these are a couple codes. We talked about recognition codes and we talked about duress codes. Think about those over the weekend and how you might incorporate codes in your family's personal security plan. I'm Gary. This has been the Power of Prudence. If this was helpful, hey, please like us on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and all the rest of the social media, except that daggone TikTok. All right. Take care.